Fight.
Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. Just wanted to, at the top, before we get into the episode with Andy and the NBA All-Star Snubs, a little solo at the end. I was going to do it at the top, but Andy was so good that I wanted to give him his fair due, especially for Carolina fans coming off the big win against Duke, heading into the Clemson game. We talked a little bit about that game as well. We're both going to be in attendance. I'm super excited to watch that one. Only way you'll be able to get that, the full value out of hearing the preview of the Clemson game. Wasn't long. But as if you listen to it on the day it comes out, which is a day early on Tuesday. Wanted to make sure I mentioned SeatGeek is the presenting sponsor of the Two Pointers Podcast. Code 2Pointers gets you $20 off your first purchase. Link in the top of the description, right below Andy's information at NC Bags. Links for all the books are down there as well. But code 2Pointers will get you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek is one of the largest ticket marketplaces in the world, where you can get a view of your seat, a deal score, making sure that you're getting the best value you can out of your tickets, whether it's a concert, sporting event, basketball game, of course, as around here. But whatever you're doing it for, $20 off your first purchase. We greatly appreciate it. It goes a long way to help support this channel, so help support this show to be able to provide the best content we can. Again, big thank you to Andy. He was incredible. Can't wait to have him back on in the summer when there's a lull in basketball time and we want to talk about the really great books he's written. Can't wait to get those read and can't wait to talk to him again. I think you guys will find this, whether you're a Carolina fan, Duke fan. I know Duke fans are not going to want to hear him talk about it, but I think it was really insightful. There were some really good answers in there, specifically around Duke and some of the process with the book. So no matter who you support, I think it's a really great interview. I think you guys will enjoy. And like I said, after we're done with Andy, you'll hear my NBA All-Star Snubs. So without further ado, thank you again to Andy and enjoy the show. All right, as you heard in the intro, we are joined today by Andy Bagwell, somebody that we've been talking back and forth for like a year trying to figure this out. I told him I hadn't read the books yet, so I wanted to work out something with the books. We're still going to do that in the future. I'm looking forward to it. At NC Bags on Twitter, social media, all of that stuff. Also, most notably, at least for people reading this, listening to this, see how fitting that is. Co-author of Duke Sucks and Duke Still Sucks. Whether you agree or disagree with that, I think you'll enjoy this interview and this podcast. And also, a nice appearance in an ESPN 30 for 30, probably one of the better ones. So I think that definitely, the Twitter bio and pic shows that, but I think it's a really cool nugget that may not get brought up as much. But first of all, how are you? And then let people know where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, I'm great. Trevor. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really glad to be here. And yeah, I like to say that 30 for 30 was really, really good despite my appearances in it. So, I think the easiest place to find me on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days, at NC Bags. I'm on Instagram, Duke Still Sucks, and I have a TikTok. And quite honestly, can't remember the handle. I'll put it out there on when I tweet this out. So, that's Twitter, X, easiest place to find me.
So, look, and this is why I love doing this, because I told you I had some things written down, I briefed you on it, but then things come up, and I like asking stuff that I think of, and I don't love to do it, but it happens. Talk about that. Maybe you have before. I haven't listened to every interview, but talk to me about the 30 for 30 process. I think that people would find that interesting because at the time when it was coming up, that's a pretty early doc in the 30 for 30 landscape, and at the time that was pre-HBO being what it is now, pre-ESPN and whatever the ones on ESPN that are. I can't even think now that they did like all the Pistons docs and things like that. I don't know the name, something. I can't remember the name of it now. But talk about that process, what it was like to get, like, do they reach out to you? How did that happen? Is there like a story that comes about there?
Yeah, it's crazy. And we actually wrote a whole chapter about it in the new book. So there's a lot more detail in there, but that's okay. No, it's all right. I didn't, you'll see it, but I'll give you the story because it was kind of crazy how it came about. So the first book, Duke Sucks, came out in 2012 and did pretty well. I mean, we were kind of surprised. We thought it would, sell a couple of books to our friends, and it kind of blew up a little bit and got a little bit of notoriety. So we would at time to time get radio interviews, podcast interviews like this. People would just send us an email. We had our email out there online. And so it wasn't that big of a deal. And Reed, my co-author, he's more introverted guy. I'm more extroverted. So we basically decided early on, okay, anything like that, you go do. So like 2014, we got an email from this person, and it didn't say from ESPN or anything. It was just, hey, we're doing a documentary about Christian Laettner, and we'd like to talk to you. So there's a right. So there's a little bit of a filtering process that happens there, Trevor, where you go, is this real or is this some Duke fan trying to get me into a room, put a bag over my head, and beat the crap out of me? So we, we were like, okay, yeah, we're interested. Can you tell us a little bit more? So we had to go back and forth. It was being really cryptic. And so finally we were like, well, okay, we'll do something, but can you just at least tell us what this is for? He goes, I'm not going to write it down. Can you call me over the phone? Again, we're like, what is this? So so we call him up and he says, listen, we can't put this out, in the ether. So this is actually for an ESPN 30 for 30. Of course, I almost fell out of my chair because I was huge fan of the films. And so fell out of my chair. I was like, I'm in, whatever you want to do. So that was really cool, really exciting. And so started kind of preparing, trying to figure out, what I wanted to be prepared to answer. We were supposed to go originally to Chapel Hill. I was supposed to go into some room up there that they were going to have when they interviewed everybody else. And then they called me the day before, and they said, hey, actually, can we come to your house and interview you? This is less than 24 hours and they're going to be in my house. Now, Trevor, I think you said you're a married man. I want you to think for a second, what if you had to turn and tell your wife, there's going to be a film crew here in our house tomorrow morning? So panic cleaning happened. They come, they do the things, probably at 45 minutes an hour. They do the interview, they leave. And then that was it. And I didn't hear anything for a long time, right? Probably a month or two went by and I didn't hear anything. So I eventually reached out to the producers. I'm just curious, like, did I make the cut at all? I don't know how these things come together. So I sent him a note. I said, hey, did I make the cut? And he goes, oh yeah, you're in there a lot. So I was like, uh-oh. So anyway, after that, the trailer comes out. I hear my voice in it. They invite us up to see the premiere in New York City. I met Christian Laettner. It was a really interesting moment. Had Grant Hill lecture me about what a great player Christian was in person. So it was a crazy experience. And then, of course, after that, just walking in a restaurant, you see yourself on TV and like, that's a weird experience, just kind of being out there, getting recognized in Home Depot and grocery stores and airports and things. So it was an unbelievably awesome experience. It obviously juiced book sales, which was a lot of fun. And I'm honestly just completely honored and privileged to be some little part of that franchise, because as you said, the movies are so incredible, so well done, and I couldn't be more than thrilled that I have this little part in it.
There's so much I want to unpack there, but I want to do justice to the fact that you brought up that I didn't read the book, and I appreciate that. And that's going to be the point of, I think, a good follow-up. So I think I'll lay that to rest, and I think we'll bring that up again.
Yes.
So let's talk about the impending. Well, I guess impending. We were talking about doing a preview. Let me change that. Let's talk about what happened, of course, right? Big weekend from college hoops in general. The one I was looking forward to the most. They always perfectly put it right there in the middle at 6:30. I love it. It's great. Gives me no excuse not to be somewhere other than my couch. Right. So obviously we know the result. North Carolina had a victory there, more specifically 93-84. Look, I without going into super detail about what I think I saw, whatever, you've been a fan for a long time. Alumni, I think we've established, obviously been around the program, done things with the program, done things with the book. Like, we know the history and the thought process behind the Tar Heels, and of course the stuff on social media, and I see how visible the opinion is. So what did you see from the team? Was there something that stuck out that was a difference maker specifically in this game?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing you do when those games, and I'm with you, I loved that Saturday afternoon college basketball. It was just awesome. I think you just never really truly don't know what's going to happen in these Duke Carolina games. You've had so many times over the last several years or the last decades, that one team is really up and the other team comes in and blasts them. And then you have blowouts the other way. So first of all, you really never truly know what is going to happen. I really thought the difference, the obvious thing to say is Harrison Ingram. And I thought he made a huge difference, but I just think, when you look at guard play overall, I I was a little bit nervous going into that game. I have a lot of respect for Jeremy Roach. I know that's hard for me to say, but I think he's an outstanding player. He's like friends with Armando and RJ, so it's hard for me to get too much hatred built up for him. And I think Tyrese Proctor's a really good player, and he'd been playing really well. So I think that, the Carolina defense had a little bit to do with it. But to me, the difference was they really shut down RJ. He kind of got his own, at the end there. But they did just enough. And really, I didn't think Jeremy Roach scored a little bit, but, Tyrese Proctor did not have a great game. And I thought, to me, that was really the difference outside of kind of some of the obvious things like, Harrison Ingram and Armando Bacot were really, really, really good. But I obviously loved the outcome of the game. I thought it was I can't think it in the moment, Trevor, but after the fact, I can sit back and go, wow, that was a really well played college basketball game. Like, to be able to watch that again and think, man, this is entertaining. It's fun. It's high level. But obviously I was pretty happy with the way it turned out.
If they played this game with the confidence that you had, and specifically, look, I could sit here and tell you all the things about Harrison Ingram and just what kind of rebounding the kind of rebounding effort that he brings that takes so much pressure off of Bacot defensive rebounding wise. I could go through all that. I did a recap podcast already about it with everything college basketball. I guess overarching thoughts, because you follow the team every year at such an extensive level. I know you made that tweet that I would call semi-viral. I think at this point it's probably reached it, where about the thoughts about Davis and reaching that respect level. So I got a chance to see all the Triangle teams play last year enough times that I was able to change my opinion on those coaches at least 3 or 4 times in that same time frame, right? Specifically Duke, they played NC State on the road. They got beat by like 28. And I turned around and see them against Louisville, and it was a whole different story regardless of what Louisville was, right? So like examples like that are there. If they were to play this game specifically with the confidence that you feel like you had in Hubert Davis in, say, February of last year, a scale of 1 to 10, like how confident were you that they could beat a Duke team like this that has had its stretches this year that looked really good?
Well, I think there's 2 parts to that question. I think as it relates to Hubert Davis, I've always had confidence in him. I did not have confidence in last year's team. So it was pretty clear early on in the year that something was just off with that team. So Trevor, one thing I do have to tell you, and I don't know that I've said this publicly, maybe one other place, but I actually lived on the same hall with Hubert Davis first 2 years at Carolina. So we're the same graduating class. And I just randomly got stuck on the basketball hall. So I'm not currently friends with Hubert Davis. It's not like we go hang out and play golf or anything together. But and the only thing he will remember me for is the parties that we threw while he was completely not a partier. So I just want to say, first of all, I have a personal, invested interest in seeing him succeed because he's an incredible person. And, I've known him, at least as an acquaintance for 30 years or something. So I want to say that and admit that right up front, other than my general bias for a Carolina fan. But I think the thing is, the reason that I just don't think that Hubert is really getting and the staff, I want to extend it to the staff. I don't think they're really getting the attention that they deserve because I think there's this perception of Carolina that you stack talent and you just roll the ball out and you go. And Carolina, Dean Smith and Roy Williams had this system that they ran, and everybody just thought it was a system. You stack talent in it and they go. And I think if you look at Hubert Davis, just his entire career arc, when he came to Carolina, obviously his uncle Walter Davis was a huge famous alum from Carolina. Dean Smith, as he was not even recruiting him, said, Hubert, I really love you. You're a family to this program, but I think you should go elsewhere. You're not going to get the playing time here that you would at a smaller school. Literally told him, I don't think you should commit. He was undervalued and underappreciated and underestimated. He came to Carolina and was a 20-point plus game scorer as a senior. And so, built that up to that point, and still to this day is the leading 3-point percentage shooter in school history. So he was underestimated. Then when he was drafted by the Knicks, everyone was like, this guy can shoot. He's going to wash out of the league. He's not that built. He's a skinny guy. He had a long and successful NBA career. So to me, Trevor, he's been underestimated at every point in his basketball career. And if you look at some of the pro coaches that he played under, I mean, Pat Riley, Don Nelson, some guys who are Hall of Famers. Then you've got Dean Smith, Bill Guthridge, Roy Williams. He's been under those coaches. He's a very, very smart guy. I think he is one of the ultimate mixologists in terms of coaches. He's taking elements of Roy Williams, he's taking elements of Dean Smith, but you can see the pro style stuff that he brings to the table, and I just don't think people are recognizing that. So to me, there's just lots of stuff that he's doing and the staff that I just don't feel like are getting recognized. And I want to make sure, people look at it and go, hey, this guy can coach. And this team in particular, he built it. They had 7 guys leave last year. So he built this team. It is a team of his making, and they're performing really, really well. So I get pretty fired up about it, because I do feel like, I feel like a lot of other coaches out there get recognized for this stuff, and I just don't know that people have turned their attention to what he really is doing on the floor.
I love it. Let's fuel the rivalry a little bit more. I know there's a game tomorrow that we're actually both going to be at, so we'll talk about that in a second. For people listening to this on Tuesday, hopefully, we'll be talking about the Clemson game briefly, because I know how these things age and date. Like, by the time Wednesday rolls around, it's irrelevant. So,
Yep.
But I want to fuel the rivalry a little bit, because you mentioned how you just never know, right? You just never know. We didn't go into the game as a recap necessarily as much as I thought we might have. I think we highlighted exactly what we both thought from the Carolina side of things. So, from a perspective of, I guess, giving it a nice frame of mind when I ask this question, right? Duke shot 50% from the field, just have an overarching level, 26% from 3, which obviously is a big, eyesore when you look at that, and 81% from the free throw line. Obviously, Carolina never trailed by more than 7 in the second half, so it felt like it was always an arm's length, right? It always felt like it was an arm's length, but of course, you know how this game is. It's just, it never feels like someone's out of it, right? Even if somebody's down 20, it's like you just know nobody's really out of it. What do you think Coach Shire is going to be doing? Obviously, he's not looking ahead to a month and a half, but obviously, as fans, that matchup and rivalry is really important. What do you think Coach Shire is doing, and what do you think they'll be more prepared to do that could help them potentially flip the table next time around in March?
Yeah, I mean, he clearly made a decision this time, right? He decided we are going to take away R.J. Davis and see if anybody else can beat us. So he's not going to do that again. I think you can look at what other teams did, and you can almost flip that script. And that's what Georgia Tech did. They said, we're going to let RJ get his, but we're going to double Armando. We're going to play all these guys to shoot and see if RJ can beat us by himself. So I don't know. I mean, clearly, he's not going to go at RJ like he did again. I don't think he can do that. Clearly, that strategy didn't work. I think he's going to try to put a little more pressure offensively on our guards. I mean, I think you have to put Elliot Cadeau and RJ. They're smaller guards, right? That is an inherent kind of weakness of this Carolina team. Now they've made up for it with some real true hustle plays on defense, but they're not getting any taller by the end of the season. And you got Tyrese Proctor, you've got Coleman. Is it Coleman coming off the bench, or they've got some bigger guards that they could put out there that could really make things difficult. So I still think that's potentially the script. The antidote to this Carolina team is take big guards, make RJ and Elliott have to guard them all the way to the basket, and then you got to see what they can do. Can you get them in foul trouble? Can you score over them? Can you pull Armando and Harrison Ingram out to the 3-point line? So if I'm John Shire, and God hope I never am, then I think that's what you probably have to do. And I think if you look at the game, not to go on a full recap, Trevor, but I don't think Duke played that bad. I mean, sometimes you go to a game and you go, oh, they just played awful. It just wasn't their night. I thought Carolina played really well. Not perfect, but well. But Duke, 50% from the floor, like you said it. 3-point shooting, obviously bad, but Carolina's defense has kind of proven they're taking that away from teams. So, if you're Duke, you've got to find ways to get better looks from 3. And I just think the guards are a potential place where they could have an advantage. Carolina would counter with Seth Trimble there. He's bringing in a guy who can defend and is a little bit taller, a little bit beefier. So it's a great chess match, and that's the thing is that with this rivalry, even coach to coach, like you got all these pieces, and it's always going to be interesting to see how it comes together.
I have a couple of things more I want to get to that are overarching about the team, the program, your time with them as a student, going back to now knowing the Hubert Davis stuff. I really thought that was interesting. Thank you for that anecdote. So, anything about the Clemson game anything about Clemson other than PJ Hall that makes you nervous? Because I'm writing my preview as we're finishing this up, It's going to be out. People are listening to us. It'll be out on house-enterprise.com on Tuesday morning. They can pair that with whatever they'd like when they hear this. But I have a couple of thoughts there. Is there anything that you see that Clemson that could give Carolina trouble? I know I mentioned to you off recording a little bit. There's some stats that don't make me feel confident on the Clemson side of things, but I'm just trying to be realistic here. Obviously, P.J. Hall's an All-American caliber player. Is there something from Clemson that may not be P.J. Hall related that could give Carolina trouble tomorrow?
Yeah, well, two real quick things on Clemson. First of all, not many people know this either, but I actually grew up a Clemson fan. My father went to school there. My older brother went to school there. I almost went to school there. So I was a huge Clemson football fan, but I went to basketball games too. So it's like if they're not playing Carolina, I'm pulling for Clemson. But and I think it's hard. It is hard. If I'm a unbiased fan, I'm not a Carolina fan. You're right. It's kind of tough to look to find things that Clemson fans could hang their hat on and give them a reason to think they've got a chance. I'm with you. I love PJ Hall. Like when it was like 2 years ago when he was there, I was like, oh, please hit the portal so we can get you. I love that kid's game. I do think one thing that, if I look back at times when Carolina got upset by a team that they should beat, it's somebody goes crazy, right? Harold Arceneaux years ago, you can go through every year, somebody catches fire. And Clemson has a guy on their team who can do that in Joe Girard, right? So that is the thing that gives me a little bit of pause to say Joe Girard could get completely hot, go 8 for 10 from 3 and put up 35 points, and that gives Clemson a chance. So that's really, to me, we saw what happened in the first game at Clemson. We kind of saw what the game plan would be. And I think Carolina's defense is such that, we've got people we can run at Girard. But if he gets hot, you never know. And I will say this too, like as you probably, I don't know if you closely followed, but for years there was a streak. Clemson had never won in Chapel Hill, and they won in February of 2020, and a month later the world nearly ended. So I don't think we should try that again. I think Clemson just does not need to come in and win in Chapel Hill, because clearly something didn't like that, and we had some problems. So let's just get out of there with a nice, easy Carolina win and move on. That is what I would like to see.
All right. I agree with that. I'll save my overarching thoughts about some of the takeaways or preview, excuse me, goodness gracious, for that preview that's coming out tomorrow, like I said. So I want to hit a couple more things I think are interesting that I thought of. When you think of the grand scheme of your life, let's just start it from the time you said you were a Clemson fan before, so that gives us a good baseline, right? So basically from I'm looking up Hubert Davis's college career to make sure I'm
88.
correct. From 88 on is when you can, basically fully claim fandom, watching all the games, whatever, right? You can claim whatever level of it you like. Obviously there have been way more highs than lows. I think we can all agree with that, right? As a program, that's something to take pride in. Most number one seeds all time. A lot of things going there. Obviously low points being last year, losing to NC State in 2015, one of the lowest, nastiest ACC games I've ever seen, and I was in the building for that. That was an interesting day. I honestly, I don't think if someone gave me $1,000 to go back in a time machine and watch that game again live, I don't think I would. It was 58-46. I mean, just one of the worst basketball games I've ever watched in my life, regardless of fandom. Enough being said. So highs and lows, I established that. There's obviously been a lot of times where you probably sit here in February after maybe a Duke win and say, there's only blank amount of teams better than North Carolina right now to win the national championship. So the way I'm trying to frame the question is, where is this team in terms of a ranking? Maybe you want to power rank them, that's fine. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit there, but maybe it's a 1 out of 10 compared to, maybe 2009 or to whatever the last championship was in the 90s. I don't have the number in front of me, sorry. But where are you? Where's your confidence level for this specific iteration of a team comparative to some in the years past?
I mean, it's a great question. And I'll first say, I'll answer it by saying, this is one of the more surprising championship caliber teams that Carolina has had in a while. And so, because a lot of years you can go into the year and go, this team's got everything that looks like a team that can make a run to the Final Four. And this was not that team in November. Coming off of last year, very disappointing, obviously, almost a complete roster overhaul. You have no idea how a bunch of transfers and a bunch of freshmen are going to fit together. So first of all, this has been, I think most Carolina fans would say, a surprising team that, and with every game, you get a little more confident in what they're doing. So I still, I do that comparison, right? You look back at the championship years or the teams that had a chance. The team that I keep coming back to is that 2017 team that won the championship the year after they had gotten absolutely just their heart ripped out against Villanova. And they came back and were, a top team all year and ended up beating Gonzaga for the national championship. But it's not so much about that arc of redemption for that 16 to 17 team that lost in the championship and then came back, or the redemption of a team that missed the tournament last year and wants to come back. It's a lot more for me about style of play. This team that Carolina has now is not stacked with NBA superstars. It's not stacked with guys that are going to play in the pros. You look at that 2009 team, Danny Green is still playing in the pros. Wayne Ellington was on that team. Ty Lawson was incredible before he washed out. Tyler Hansbrough, even though he didn't have a long NBA career, one of the greatest college basketball players. That team was stacked. This is not that team. I honestly, Trevor, I don't know if any of the guys on this team currently are going to have long NBA careers. Maybe Harrison Ingram, if Elliot Cadeau gets a jump shot, maybe. So, but that 2017 team won with grit and just determination. And when it got to tournament time, they decided they were going to give everything they had on defense every time. And that's what this team has found. They have figured out that our offense is going to come and go, but if we can hang our hat on defense and we've got great rebounders and we try to control the ball, we are going to give ourselves a chance. And there's so many games this year that I look back at the stats and I go, how did we win this? Like it doesn't make sense, but it always comes back to those things. And so to me, I don't know that they're as good as this year as 17. They're definitely not good as 19 if I look at the championship years. But you're always relative to the rest of college basketball. So it doesn't matter if it's as good as 17. You only have to be better than the teams in front of you. But I've been honestly very reluctant to say that this is a team that's capable of getting to the Final Four and see what happens. But I think at this point in the year, you've got 9 regular season games left, and you look around and you've watched enough basketball, you have to start to believe that is a reasonable expectation to think that they can get to the Final Four, and once you get there, anything can happen. So I don't think I can put them above any of those teams yet, but that's the team that I keep coming back to, and like they've got a lot of the same elements, and they just play a similar style. So we'll see. I mean, it's a crapshoot when you get that far into the tournament, but I think they're one of the teams that has a chance.
I think that was a beautiful bow on the 25 minutes of this season stuff. So I had a couple of rapid fire I want to give you at the end here. I asked for 30 and we're at 25, so I think we're getting good.
All good.
Here. I only have 5. If I think of any more, I'll throw more at you. But just kind of 30 seconds, whatever, anything that comes out here. Favorite in-person game or moment you've witnessed as a fan?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I have to go back to my senior year, the Bloody Montrose game. So that was my senior game.
Rest in peace.
I was in the stands.
Yes.
Great game. Obviously incredible. The celebration on Franklin Street was epic. Montrose came out. He had bandages on him. We were all around him. So I still go back to that game as probably one of the most epic games I've ever been at. I was also at the 98 Duke Carolina game when Vince Carter missed the dunk off the backboard. That was pretty epic too, but 92 Bloody Montrose game, probably top 1 for me.
Least hated or favorite, however term you want to put that, Duke player of all time. I know you gave the Grant Hill thing earlier was interesting. Like, he's such a likable personality to most. Obviously, the whole documentary is based around hating a guy. So is there anybody, any year, any time, anybody you met? I don't care how you interpret it, but somebody, maybe somebody, I don't know, answer it this way. Anybody you've met that you like the most, or anybody that you just in general would like to answer that way? I
mean, Grant Hill is the obvious answer, and right. I think a lot of fans would say Jay Billis now, just because he's such a good player. This might be taken badly by a Carolina fan listening to this. I have to say, I really enjoyed, past tense now, because I think he's kind of got off the rails. I really enjoyed watching Zion Williamson play. I just wish he had not gone to Duke. I did not hate him. I just hated that he went to Duke. and I hated all the hype that was around him because you couldn't get away from it. But I don't think he chose that. So that's probably not going to be a very popular answer. But I mean, I think he's obviously, I don't know if he's injured or his weight issues or whatever. Now he's not the same player. But that one year he was at Duke, it was hard to deny that he was kind of fun to watch and a very, very unique player. So just from a basketball sense, that'd be my answer. In terms of meeting Duke players, I honestly, well, the restraining order probably prevents that. I'm kidding. But I honestly can't think of many that I've met in person that
The Grant
maybe
Hill one was a perfect example, though. I mean,
yeah,
he's just such a likable guy. Like, and
he is.
if you didn't tell anybody who didn't care about basketball, if you were like, yeah, that guy played at Duke, they'd be like, yeah, okay, like I don't,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
he's a nice guy, you know, and it seems like that carries well for him.
It's true.
Not a number or name or whatever that hangs up in the rafters, but somebody that when you look back and you go, that guy is somebody we don't talk about enough as somebody who was really great in a Carolina uniform.
Well,
Underrated.
I'm a sucker for point guard. So Ed Cota, first one that comes to mind, and a lot of people still talk about him. He's the leading assist guy in Carolina history, but I'm a sucker for a pass first point guard. And oh my gosh, I could watch Ed Cota highlights every day, all day, and it would be glorious. So that was after my time in school, but when you paired him with Vince Carter and Antoine Jameson, and all that kid had to do is just run down and throw it up anywhere near the rim, it was fun to watch. To me, that's basketball the way it should be played. And so I think, I go to him, and I go to Kendall Marshall was another guy that still gets a lot of press, but more recently, I love that type of player.
I tried to think of one in the minute or so that you answered that, and I didn't come up with a good enough sleeper, so I'm not gonna comment. I'll message you one when I think of one, because I definitely have one. I didn't prepare it. You mentioned Zion. I'm gonna take him out of this answer. Recruiting what if? Who's the one that got away that that's not Zion Williamson, of course.
So there's a two-parter there. There's two parts to answer this question. So I'll try to be brief. One was Brandon Ingram. That was his recruitment. He's from Jerry Stackhouse' old town, same town where all these old Carolina players came from, but it was right in the thick of all the NCAA crap. And and I don't blame the kid, right? He just couldn't come. But oh my gosh, I would have loved to seen him play for Roy Williams, even if it was 1 year. So recent, that's one. So that's one I wish had come to Carolina. One that I think is a great sliding doors moment, Trevor, and something we should probably talk about at another time, because it has a lot of implications, honestly, is Christian Laettner. He told me in person, I almost went to Carolina. We would have been hallmates at Carolina. Now, the sliding door moment here, and again, the conversation another time, do they win the national? Does Duke win national championships without Christian Laettner? Probably not. Does Mike Krzyzewski become that guy without Christian Laettner? Probably not. Does Dean Smith? What happens there? There's this whole crazy thing. Does North Carolina become the hated school because they had Christian Laettner? So I think it's fascinating to think about that, and I don't think a lot of people know how close it was to that happening.
My buddies and co-hosts over at Everything College Basketball, they're deep in the Indiana, Kentucky, Louisville territory, and they like to tell me when both are good that's like the great, it can be the greatest. And I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, no other team or school can have a hypothetical like that where you go, that backs up every bit of the crap. All right, last one. One result in team history that you have one genie, one lamp rub, and that's the one you got to reverse. And I know you're probably going to say 2017 Villanova or 2016 Villanova, the shot, right? I get it. If that's not the answer, what is it?
It's not the answer.
All right.
The most painful loss above that shot was Utah 1998. So again, it goes back to Ed Cota, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson. That team was dominant. They dominated all year. They were the most fun Carolina basketball team to watch I can ever remember. They were absolutely cruising, and they just hit a wall against Utah and lost that game in the Final Four. That game, I was so depressed after that game, but I always thought that team is the quintessential, for me as a fan, the quintessential team that should have won it all, that didn't. And that was just going to be a coronation, and it didn't happen. And it was, to me, I would love to go back in time and change the outcome of that game.
Funny you say that. I forget about that one a lot as somebody who's not directly affiliated as a fan. When you Google Utah versus North Carolina in 1998, that is the only thing you put in. An article from the Tar Heel Illustrator pops up. Number 2 is what it says, titled UNC's 5 most painful hoops losses ever. I think that's a fitting way to put a cap on that. That was an incredible 30 minutes. Thank you. Anything you want to say, story, plug, obviously the book, everything will be linked below. All the Twitter stuff will be below, but tell people where they can find you. Anything you want to talk about on the way out.
No, I mean, I think, just hit me up on Twitter, X, at NCBags. The books are out there anywhere you can buy books. I think they're a lot of fun to read if you're a college basketball fan. And obviously, if you're a Duke hater, Kentucky fan, UNC fan, Maryland fan, it's going to be right in your wheelhouse. So they're a lot of fun for us to write. And I think it's really great for people to tell us they have fun reading them. So thank you, Trevor. I really just appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun. Enjoyed talking about college basketball and Carolina Duke anytime. And it's just for me, with the books and the 30 for 30, as I said before, it's an honor to be part of that 30 for 30 franchise. And the fact that we've carved this tiny little slice out in the rivalry and feel like we're maybe a little bit of a part of it is just incredible, because it is the greatest rivalry in sports. And I will debate your friends all day who are Kentucky and Louisville fans on that. So it's just really cool. And I love talking about it. And I know, there's a lot of folks out there that enjoy the rivalry just as much as I do, and from both sides. So thanks for having me, and glad to be on.
All right. As you just heard, big thank you to Andy Bagwell for joining us today at NC Bags on social media. Links to buy his books are in the description below. Please support him and all the work he's doing. Greatly appreciate Andy's time. Can't wait to work with him in the future. He's an incredible interview. Dude, had a great time. So, all right. Want to talk really quick. I was going to do this at the open. You heard this at the top, but I wanted to give him his fair due. I think it was a really great interview. I think there was some great insight around Carolina Duke, the rivalry, just the whole shebang of North Carolina and basketball. So I want to give him his fair due there. Or let's hit the All-Star snubs. I think this will be an interesting conversation, as those just came out not too long ago. I don't have the date in front of me. I knew the show was going to be going out a day early, so I wanted to give some bonus content so it wasn't just 25 minutes or 35 minutes, whatever it was with Andy. So we'll talk some NBA All-Star starters, snubs, or snubs in general for the All-Star game. I'll start in the East for those that don't know or are listening to this to hear who these are. I'll run through who is selected in the All-Star game, and then I'll talk about the snubs and my reasoning why or why not for that. So just a couple of things here. The East starters are Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid. There's obviously going to be some injury replacements. I am just going to tell you based on what was voted, what I think about it, and obviously who, because of injuries, who I think should replace or will replace these guys. I don't know exactly who's injured and who's not in this right now. I know there's going to be a couple of swaps here and there. The starters you would have heard already with Grayson and I laid out the case why it probably should have been Brunson instead of Dame, but honestly, neither answer was wrong. Damian Lillard's first start in the All-Star game, so honestly, really deserving there, but Brunson's been incredible, and I've already laid out the case. I'll link it at the top with the little eye on YouTube, whichever side of the screen it's on. You can go check out the NBA All-Star or voting panel, whatever we did, mid-season awards. I can't get that right. Recording this late at night, so I can get you guys this episode. Reserves, Bam Adebayo, Paolo Banchero. There was an argument to be made there about Scotty Barnes. We'll get into that in a second. Jaylen Brown, who apparently, as of I'm recording this on Monday night, February 5th, apparently he's going to potentially be, or confirmed by Shams, to be in the dunk contest. That's interesting. First All-Star to appear in it since, I believe, 2017, if I saw that right. Jalen Brunson, as we established, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Maxey, and Julius Randle. Again, talking about injury replacements, Joel Embiid and Julius Randle are going to be replaced with someone as part of injury replacements. Going through the list of potential candidates for the East, I know I'm trying to make sure here. Derek White will probably be it. Scotty Barnes, like I said, is in contention there. Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis, Jared Allen, Miles Turner, all worthy candidates. If I had to give you two, I would probably say Kristaps, and I would probably say Derek White. I know that sounds crazy, but those guys have been incredible. Blossom's number one team in the East. why they're not coaching. I don't particularly know the answer why they're not going to be the coaches for the team. Doc Rivers and his staff are going to be coaching the All-Star game, and the Bucks are third in the East. So I got to figure out what that is. But nonetheless, I don't want to waste any time here and tell you anything that you haven't heard. The argument for Paolo is the Magic, obviously, the perception and the idea around the Raptors going the direction they went with, obviously getting rid of Siakam and getting rid of OG Anunoby and going into the full rebuild. Scotty Barnes has been incredible in that process, but the idea of what Paolo is and what he is becoming and helping the Magic, and I know he's one piece of that, right? Franz Wagner's been incredible. Jalen Suggs' defense has been absolutely out of this world. I hope he gets an all-defensive nod like he should. I know Grace and I didn't go over that in the midseason awards, but absolutely deserving of that spot. You can hear a really great interview. Ryan Russillo sat down with Suggs and talked about his defensive impact. It was incredible. But Paolo is a huge piece of that, right? To do what he's doing in the first few years of his NBA career, I think he deserves the nod, and he is a big reason why the Magic are turning things around. Again, I'm not here to tell you all the numbers and break down all these reasons why and tell you what these guys' warps are and their Raptor score, and I'm not, because I watch the game enough that there is enough that we can sit here and tell you right now why or why not a guy is, and doesn't always have to be based on stats. And also, I didn't want to make this episode 2 hours long. I wanted to give you what you thought, and then honestly, I want to have a good discourse in the comments. Let me know what I was right about, what I was wrong about, what you think about the snubs, if there is any. That is my segue to tell you that I don't think the East has any. I think the East is 100% correct. I think we got it 100% through and through correct. Again, the argument you can make is Brunson and Lillard. I get it. The Bucks are near the top of the East, so were the Knicks, obviously, as this stuff was submitted. I'd lean back and forth, and I don't particularly care either way. I would give it to Dame just because of his impact on the Bucks to keep it steady, even with the coaching changes and all that stuff. Brunson has been incredible. I cannot let that go understated. Knicks fans, of course, are going to make sure people know that it is not understated. The West is where it gets interesting. Again, I don't want to sit here and bore you with why or why not. I think there could be somebody in the East. I'd be wasting my time. The starters in the West: Luka Doncic, SGA, LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic. Off the bench, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think, looking at that, making sure I'm correct, that any of those guys are going to be replaced injury-wise. The only real case that I could sit here and think, okay, this guy or that guy, the West definitely had, I think, more worthy snub candidates, right? Just to name a few. Yeah, Harden's going to be brought up as an argument. I'm, obviously not on the Clippers long enough. I know what the impact has been. The midseason trade thing is so tough, and I don't think we've ever seen it historically work out for a guy, all-star vote-wise, for doing that. Jamal Murray, obviously, that's an obvious one that I think is going to get brought up enough. The Nuggets don't feel like the same, caliber of team or player driven, in Murray's case, right? He doesn't feel like he's leaving it all out on the floor there. And he feels like he's obviously a part of an incredible duo that come playoff time, it's going to look silly that, it's a regular season award. It's going to look silly that we don't have, Jamal Murray in the All-Star game, right? 21 points per game, 6 assists, 40% from three. The argument maybe Paul George over him is a case, but look, Jokic is the best player on this team. He's played 35 games, right? And I think that's fine. It's not enough of an argument where I'm going to sit here and tell you over and over again why he should be. Larry Markkanen's interesting. Just some of the absolute, just the statistics back him up from a regard of, but people aren't looking at the Jazz that way. I think they've been better than anticipated, of course, being competitive in the West. Alperen Şengün is another one who's just, I think he's more deserving of the most improved player candidacy than he is of the All-Star voting candidacy. And then that is it. So I guess there isn't a ton, right? I laid out more East candidates, but I think there's some more deserving ones. The two guys that are going to get left off, and Rudy Gobert, let me throw that out there. He ties into a little bit what I'm going to talk about here at the end. Rudy Gobert, as good as I think Rudy Gobert has been defensively this year, the problem I have is it really enough to put in a guy with that kind of impact where there are other reasons the team is succeeding at the absolute peak and level that it could through this year so far, right? I'm not, Tyler Metcalf here watching every single Timberwolves game. I'm going to openly admit that. But Anthony Edwards is a huge reason that this team is what it is, and he got the nod, right? The guy that people are arguing should not be in there is Karl-Anthony Towns. And if you had told me in the last 3 years that I would be defending Karl-Anthony Towns as an all-star, I might have told you were crazy, right? Unless it was just, best stats on the best, best 6 seed or whatever, right? What he's done from an adjustment standpoint to have to be the guy where he was, 22 to 25 a night for a couple of years there, right? No real defense, was expected to be played. And if he did, it was something that was sporadic at best. The issue that people are going to have is, well, there's other guys behind him that have better statistics. Well, sometimes it's not that simple. The way I think Karl-Anthony Towns is viewed as this guy that isn't a defensive player, isn't a teammate, or isn't this or isn't that, big good stats, but what is he doing for his team? He's been just as big of a reason to this Timberwolves success that Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert has. His adjustment to have to be the guy, obviously we know he's a good shooter from deep. He's shooting over 40% this year, 22 points. I know he's rebounding ball well and passing the ball well as well. But the real big point here is that his ability to create for himself and to be a good teammate in the situation he's been has really helped this team out. Again, not the biggest reason, but a really, really big part of it where you saw a little bit of a number drop off, but it's efficient. It's something that we don't see often from a guy who, former number one overall pick. Again, I'm not telling you there's just no argument why he should or shouldn't be. They're also tied for the best record in the West when I'm recording this on the 5th of February. That has to matter, right? Ultimately, if winning's the thing that you're going to, say that you can argue against, it's ridiculous, right? I know it's a regular season award. Stats probably drive it a 90% of the time for most voters. Fans, obviously, all the method that goes into the voting is ridiculous, but Karl-Anthony Towns is deserving of an all-star spot. The argument is he deserving over Fox or Sabonis? Really quick to cut that up a little bit. Sabonis, there's not going to be 2 Kings for the 5th seed in the West. It's just not going to happen. The other thing you could think of here that's interesting is that the Sacramento Kings were 29-23 through October, the beginning of last season, to February 5th of last season. Same day I'm recording this. They're 29-20. So they're 3 losses better, but no wins better through that same time. And really the same team through that regard. 5th in the West. If the Kings were to get one, it's Fox and not Sabonis, right? And I will give Fox his fair credit for his statistics. I'm going to pull those up. Fox has been an incredible player this year. He's honestly been an incredible player throughout the many years before and developing into his role. He's been a one-time All-Star before. He was an All-NBA player last year, deservingly so. He's averaging 27.5 points, 4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 47, 38, 72 splits, and a 20 PER. Again, stats I'm going to tell you, they're incredible, right? But what Karl-Anthony Towns has done to impact the fact that the Timberwolves are, I would call it significantly better right now. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot when it's 6 games, but to think that the Timberwolves 24-8 in the conference to the Kings 18-13, 6-2 in the division to 6-5 in the division. I know tougher division there for the Kings. 19-5 at home to the Kings, 14-8 at home. And we think about the Kings as this incredible home environment, one of the really only real ones left in the NBA. It's an incredible thing to think that the Timberwolves have been that good at home. A lot of NBA teams this year struggling on the road. Thunder even 15-9 feels weird. 16-10 for the Timberwolves. And again, overall, I'm not going to sit here and beat you up with stats and defensive stuff, but neither guy is a completely stout defender where you can tell me that's his major argument. You can sit here and tell me Fox is scoring the best, he's the best player on his team, as the best, leader, whatever you want to tell me. But again, to sit here and tell you that Karl-Anthony Towns hasn't been impactful, I'd be lying to you. So, as crazy as it's going to sound, and the title is going to tell you that there's snubs, I don't think there is any. I think the NBA, for the first time in really a long time, I never went back and looked at the history for this. I think they got it right. I think they did. I think we got the NBA correct. Don't forget, again, SeatGeek is the presenting sponsor of the Two Pointers podcast. On the way out of here, just wanted to make sure I touched base on that really quick. Again, huge thank you to Andy Bagwell. Give Andy some support in the comment section below. Just wanted to sign off really officially. I liked how that last sentence ended there, but I do just want to say a huge thank you for all the support lately. In-game coverage on the recaps, the articles, house-enterprise.com, all the work that's been going on here. It is really, really appreciated. Again, one big final thank you to Andy Bagwell. Go buy one of his books, both of his books, all of his books. in the description below. Greatly appreciate that. Signing off for the first time in a while like this, but this has been the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and we will see you next week.